Studies Section 6, the Labor Market. Introduction. We emphasized in the last 3 chapters that expansionary fiscal or monetary policy increases output level. Now, consider a rise in government spending or an increase in money supply. In any of the 2 cases, demand will rise and firms will increase production. Increase in production implies increase in employment. Increase in employment will lead to decrease in unemployment. As unemployment falls, labor market becomes tighter. The tighter the labor market, the higher the wage rate. Increase in wage rate leads to increase in cost of production, which in turn leads to increase in goods prices. The transmission mechanism through which fiscal expansion or monetary expansion leads to increase in both output and input prices has not up to this moment been articulated. The reason for this is that we assume that prices were held constant, that is, the economy was in the short run. The ISLM model examined was based on the assumption that prices are constant, there is no expectation, and the economy is closed. However, relaxed the assumption of expectation and it is time to relax the assumption of constant prices. The analysis of price changes due to distortion in the real or money market is called the medium-term analysis. We begin our discussion by first conceptualizing the labor market. We then proceed to examine the demand and supply side of the market and later characterize the equilibrium condition. Objectives. At the end of this chapter, it is expected that you should be able to do the following: understand various terms used in the labor market, be able to determine equilibrium wage in the labor market, appreciate the factors that determine labor demand and labor supply, the interrelationship between unemployment and output. General characteristics of the labor market. The recent census carried out by the National Population Commission in 2006 indicated that Nigerian population was 151,212,254, while the labor force was computed to be 48,620,126 in the same year, IMF 2010. This implies that the share of labor force in total population in 2008 was 32.2%. The labor force comprises people within the age bracket of 15 to 65 years. The people that are available for civilian employment are called the non-institutional civilian population. These people exclude members of the armed forces, those incarcerated, the lunatics, and so on. The labor force participation rate is defined as the share of labor force in non-institutional civilian population. The higher this rate is, the more people are available for job. In Nigeria, labor force participation rate was 56.1%. at which young workers switch between getting a job and getting out of the job or moving to another job compared to the old ones. It is clear that separation and higher rate are not the same for the different groups of workers. In Nigeria, for example, unemployment among the young is far greater than for the old. Also, employment rate among male appears to differ from that of the female counterparts. Why is this so? First, young people often hold low-paying jobs. They have little seniority and most often the first to be laid off during downsizing. Also, young people tend to move between jobs, decide not to work or not participate in labor force. This is because, first, family responsibilities are not so demanding, unlike the middle and old people whose responsibilities make it much difficult. Hence, it is clear that separation and higher rate are not the same for the different groups of workers. In Nigeria, for example, unemployment among the young is far greater than for the old. Also, employment rate among male appears to differ from that of the female counterparts. Why is this so? First, young people often hold low-paying jobs. They have little seniority and most often the first to be laid off during downsizing. Also, young people tend to move between jobs, decide not to work or not participate in labor force. This is because, first, family responsibilities are not so demanding, unlike the middle and old people whose responsibilities make it much difficult. Most Nigerians working in advanced countries migrated during their young age and even in their country of designation. They still swap between jobs until they eventually settle with one. These differences across jobs and workers have led to macroeconomists to think of labor market as dual labor market, where there exist primary and secondary labor markets. In the primary labor market, jobs are good, wages are high, and turnover is low. This type of market is basically for the high-skilled workers. In the secondary market, jobs are poor, wages are low, and turnover is very high, and so such market is where the unskilled workers operate. How wages are determined in the labor market. We have characterized the labor market and established the fact that low sales will lead to low hiring of new workers or layoff of existing workers. This in turn leads to high probability of losing job by those employed and low probability of getting employed by those looking for a job. One important factor in the decision to hire or fire workers is the wages. Workers will usually want high wages, but firms will be willing to pay low wage so as to maximize profit. Thus, it is important to examine how wages are set in the labor market. Wage setting can take many dimensions. In some countries like Japan, EU, and Nigeria, collective bargaining plays an important role in wage determination. In the US, bilateral or unilateral bargaining is prominent. Some countries practice a mix of collective bargaining and minimum wage. Even those implementing minimum wage have different minimum wage level. In the United States, minimum wage is less than average wage, about 38% of the average wage, while in France, it was exactly half of the average wage. In Nigeria, minimum wage is greater than average wage, more than 100%. The analysis shows that there are institutional differences over time and across country, and one may be tempted that given these differences, there may not be a general theory of wage determination. This might be true, but what is clear is that no matter the divergent the institutions are, there are at least two characteristics that cut across wage determination. First, workers are paid a wage that is over their reservation wage. Reservation wage is a wage called a break-even wage. Workers see the wage as making their welfare the same if they pick up the job or not. Thus, for workers to work, they will need a wage that will raise their incentive to work. Second, wages depend on labor market condition. If there is high level of unemployment, we expect wages to be small, while if unemployment is low, wages will increase. It follows from these two facts that workers tend to possess some element of bargaining power, while firms tend to pay wage that is above the reservation wage. The extent of bargaining power owned by a worker depends on two factors. Relationship between wages and unemployment. We said earlier that wages are primarily determined by the labor market condition. If there is a large pool of unemployment, slack labor market, wages will fall, and if there is a small pool of unemployment, tight labor market, wages will rise. There are other variables such as expected price level that determine wage rate. Workers care about the power of their wages in the good market. That is what their wages and salary can purchase. Thus, they care about their real wage, not nominal wage. On the other hand, firms also care about wages they pay with respect to how much the price they are going to sell the goods produced by these workers. Thus, if the workers know that price is going to increase in future, they will demand for high wage today, while sellers will not also hesitate to pay high wage in future since price of their goods is expected to increase. Thus, there is a positive relationship between wages and price level. Also, in this framework, there is a one-to-one positive relationship such that a doubling of price level will lead to a doubling of wage. Now, leave aside unemployment rate and expected price. There are other factors that determine wages such as unemployment insurance, rate of job creation and destruction, minimum wage legislation, economic condition, etc. We expect a rise in any of these variables to lead to an increase in wage rate. Given these factors, we can write an expression for the relationship between wage and its determinant as follows, where W is wage rate, P raised to power E is expected price level, U is the unemployment rate, and X is other variables affecting W apart from price level and unemployment rate. Determination of price level in the goods market. In this section, we have discussed the determinants of wages. In this section, we shall discuss the determinants of prices. First, a simple macroeconomic theory tells us that for a profit-maximizing firm, price depends on cost of production, while this in turn depends on the nature of the production function. If we assume for a moment that labor is the only factor input used in production, then the production will be expressed as follows, where Q is the output level, L is the amount of labor employed, and A captures labor productivity. If we assume that labor productivity is constant, then A is represented a constant figure. Since labor productivity is constant, it follows that we can ignore the letter A and rewrite equation 6.2 as follows. The equation says that cost of producing an additional unit is the cost of employing additional worker, which in turn is the wage. We know from our microeconomic understanding that firms will continue to hire workers until marginal cost equals wage rate. Also, in the perfectly competitive market, price is equal to wage rate. In an imperfectly competitive market, firms tend to charge price that is above marginal cost. Thus, to capture wage determination in both markets, we write an expression in equation 6.3 that shows the relationship between prices and factors that determine it. The wage setting WS relation, assuming that wage depends on actual price level instead of expected price level, we can rewrite equation 6.1 as follows. If we divide both sides by P, we will arrive at an expression that shows the relationship between real wage and its determinants. Equation 6.5 says that real wage is a decreasing function of unemployment. That is, the higher the unemployment, the lower the real wage chosen by the wage setter. Wage setter in this context implies the unions and firms, collective bargaining, or individual and firms bilateral bargaining, or firms, take it or leave it. The relationship between wage and unemployment is called the wage setting relation. This relationship is illustrated in figure 6.1. The wage setting relation is downward sloping, implying that as unemployment rises, real wage falls. The price setting relation. We can use the same idea above to determine the price-setting relation by dividing equation 6.3 by P and simplify. Dividing this equation by W over P, we will get the price-setting decision determines the real wage paid by firms, and it depends on the magnitude of the markup price over cost. An increase in the markup will lead to increase in prices holding wages constant and hence decrease in real wage. Note that markup price will increase if firms have market power. Thus, equation 6.6 says that the higher the markup price, the lower the real wage. When plotted against unemployment rate, the price-setting relation is horizontally sloped as shown in figure 6.2. The figure shows that the price setting is constant and equal to, that is, price setting does not depend on changes in unemployment. This is not surprising since unemployment rate does not appear in the price setting relation. For any change in unemployment, PS is the same. Equilibrium in the labor market. The equilibrium in the labor market requires that the real wage implied by the wage setters is just equal to the one implied by the price setters. We do this by equating equation 6.5 and equation 6.6, that is, equation 6.7 says that the wage rate implied by the wage setting relation theta into bracket ux must be equal to the one implied by the price setting relation. In terms of graph, we superimpose figure 6.1 and 6.2 as done in figure 6.3. Clearly, the equilibrium shows that the level of unemployment that is consistent with the real wage implied by both wage setting and price setting. This level of unemployment is called the natural rate of unemployment, denoted as UN. Shifts in WS and PS. There are two important factors that can change the position of real wage. These are the unemployment rate and the markup over cost. Consider first an increase in unemployment rate. Given markup over cost, this will cause a shift of the real wage, and since 1 over 1 plus y is constant, if unemployment benefit falls, real wage will fall at a given rate of unemployment, and this will shift the WS curve, and this increases the natural rate of unemployment from UN0 to UN1. Thus far, we have established the equilibrium real wage rate, and we have shown that changes the nature of the job, bargaining power, and nature of the market account for the behavior of natural rate of unemployment. How do firms react to employment when sales falls? They can hire fewer new workers or adopt the two methods. But firms don't just fire due to low demand. They first stop hiring or at best slow hiring. If sales continues to fall, they revert to retirement and quit. Firms will adopt layoffs if sales do not pick up for a reasonable time period. The implication of low employment or increase in layoff is that it narrows the chances of those already unemployed to find a job, and this makes the labor market slack. Slack in the sense that there are very few job openings due to fewer jobs, and there will be many applicants due to high level of unemployment. Slack labor market implies high probability of jobless. Thus, higher unemployment means both a lower probability of getting a job and a high probability of losing a job. If the labor market is tight, or there is more stringent antitrust legislation that decreases make-up cost, or there is increase in social security allowance, unemployment rate will rise. Now, there is certain level of output consistent with any given natural rate of unemployment. Hence, there must be a natural unemployment that is associated with natural level of output. Natural level of employment is defined as the level of employment that exists when the unemployment rate just at its natural level. If total unemployment is U, while total labor force is given as Y, level of unemployment is L, then the relationship between natural level of output and natural level of employment is as follows. That is, unemployment rate U is equal to 1 minus the ratio of employment to the labor force. It is easy to solve for level of employment by making N the subject of equation. Thus, if the natural rate of unemployment is UN, then natural level of employment will be Ln. What message is equation 6.9 passing across? It says that natural level of employment increases with decrease in natural rate of unemployment. Consider a country with labor force being 75 million. If the natural rate of unemployment is 5%, clearly natural level of employment will necessarily be Ln is equal to 75 into bracket 1 minus 0.05 is equal to 71 million. Hence, once we know the total labor force and the natural rate of unemployment, we can easily know the natural rate of employment. The level of output produced at the natural rate of unemployment is called the natural level of output. Now, if the production function exhibits the one specified in equation 6.2, then it is easy to show the relationship between natural level of output and natural level of employment. To do this, we plug equation 6.8 into 6.7 so that we have clearly, natural level of output depends on the pricing decision of the firms. The greater the markup price, the smaller the natural level of output, and the smaller it is, the greater the natural level of output. On a final note, we have spent our time describing the equilibrium in the labor market and have seen how pricing decision can alter the equilibrium. In the ISLM framework, monetary and fiscal policies are strong determinants of output. However, this only makes sense in the short run when price level is assumed not to vary significantly. As the economy moves to the medium run where changes in price is unavoidable, there is need to anticipate changes in employment and hence level of output. In the next chapter, we shall use the implication of labor market dynamics on the economy. Summary: in the medium run, the economy is affected by the labor market situation, and so we need to understand the workings of the labor market. Labor market is a place where demand for and supply of labor occurs. Labor force comprises the people presently employed and those who are willing and able to work but have not been employed. Non-institutional civilian population comprises population excluding the members of national defense, the police force, the armed forces, etc. The ratio of labor to non-institutional population is the participation rate. The higher the number, the higher the people available for civilian works. Although unemployment rate is the ratio of the difference between labor force and those employed to labor force, and this does not give a perfect measure of unemployment rate. We need to also account for those that are not actively searching for a job. If we account for this, unemployment rate will be higher. High unemployment is associated with the period of recession. During this period, the probability of getting jobs and the probability of losing jobs very high. Also, wages tend to fall during this period. Probability of losing job also depends on the nature of the job. The highly skilled workers have low probability of being fired, while the unskilled have high firing probability. Firms will embark on downsizing during the recession by first reducing recruitment, then move to quit before adopting more stringent loan layoffs. Wages depends on expected prices, and it is the case that the higher the expected prices, the higher the wage. Other factors that affect wage determination include the condition of the labor market and the nature of the job. Good prices depend on the cost of production, wages, and the markup prices. If wages increase, cost of production will increase, and this will prompt firms to raise good prices. Furthermore, if the firms have market power, they can raise markup price and this increases good prices. There is inverse relationship between real wage and markup price. It follows that the real wage determined in the labor market are rooted in the decision of the wage setters and the price setters. The equilibrium real wage is established where the real wage implied by the wage setters is equal to the one implied by the price setters. If we assume that expected price is equal to actual price, then equilibrium real wage essentially determines the level of natural rate of unemployment. However, under certain circumstances, where price level differs from expected price, unemployment rate will not be equal to natural rate of unemployment. The output level produced at the natural rate of unemployment is the natural level of output, and this is attained at the natural level of employment. There is a connection between natural level of output and markup price. When markup rises, given the price level, we expect natural level of output to fall while natural rate of unemployment rises. This is the end of study section 6. Thanks for listening.